I'm Karina Neighbour, and this is the AV Experience, a podcast brought to you by Optoma. Today on the show we have Liz Berry, CEO of Hologrammica and inventor of the Holopops Ultra, the technology behind the now infamous hologram Kanye West gifted his wife Kim Kardashian West for her birthday. With over 30 years of experience, I was excited at the chance to sit down with Liz to learn more about her journey and to get her to reveal the secrets behind holograms. I started by asking Liz for her career origin story. I'd heard stories of her history spoken throughout the office. Things like she was the genius behind placing the iconic lights for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that she had toured with artists such as Elton John and Robbie Williams, and how she was now running her own company, Hologrammica. I wanted to know the exact path she carved out for herself. She started by telling me about her time at university.
I started doing an English and philosophy degree at Manchester University, and at the end of my first year, I got the highest marks ever seen in an English exam. So I did the obvious thing. I quit my degree and went and did an electronics HNC at South Bank Polytechnic, as was then, in London. And the reason for that was that I had been getting more and more involved in doing sound and light in the university student union. I realised I'd found something that I really wanted to do. So the English and philosophy didn't work anymore. So off I went. I did my HNC. And the day that I left, I got a job with a company called Verilight. Now, Verilight were the world's first moving light company, and it was a brand new technology, and I joined the company 1 month after the first of their sort of serious units hit the UK. That was an extraordinary thing because I was actually employed as a technician, and because you could only get Verilights from Verilight, you did everything. Normally, lighting companies, there might be a specialist lighting company for theatre or TV or rock and roll or whatever, whereas we did everything. And I eventually went on the road, so started doing live shows and became an operator as well as a technician. One of the things that I did was I was the moving light programmer for the pilot and the first 3 series of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And they still use my original moving light moves. They actually asked me, there were some lights left over, and they said to me, where do you want to put them? And I put them right in shot on the floor. And thus they stayed for, you see it worldwide still. So it didn't change. I just wish that I got paid for the idea, but I didn't. So I take personal pride in the fact that actually that remained. I went off on the road. My second ever tour was Elton John. It was a very new technology. It was very expensive. There were patents pending on the equipment, and we worked in all different marketplaces. And I always say I worked my way down, because as moving lights got more ubiquitous, the types of shows that you ended up on were cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So when I started, it was all absolutely the most expensive, the most sort of aspirational tours in the world. And now you can pretty much get them anywhere. So as I say, I worked my way down through that. And as I became a lighting operator, I then got the opportunity to be a lighting designer and a creative director. And one of the people that I worked for quite a long time was Robbie Williams. I worked with him from when he'd quit Take That all the way up to what were at the time, I don't know if they still are, the largest shows in the UK ever. So we did 125,000 people a night at Knebworth for 3 nights. So as a lighting designer, creative director, all the way through, I was working with Robbie and really got to see everything from the tiniest shows all the way up to these massive, great big stadium things. And obviously it was great fun, and it was so fast. It was a very, very quick path. One of the things that the management asked me to do when I was working with Robbie was to find something for a track that he had released on the Finding Nemo album. So Finding Nemo movie was going to have a London premiere that was going to kind of grab the press attention and get all the promotional So I went off trying to find something and I came across holograms. Even though in actual fact that project didn't happen, I stayed in touch with the company who did the holograms and got involved. And for me, it was an absolutely perfect combination of the artistic side, so all the design side that I'd done, combined with the technical side that, I'm still a technician at heart. And it all came together in holograms. And it was, at the time, it was very, very new. And I could see all of these parallels with the old Verilight stuff. So it was a brand new product. It's what we would now call disruptive. It went into all these different markets. So it went into TV, into conference, into live events, all these things that I'd done. And I turned around and I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I've seen this before and I know how this story ends. Here we go again. To actually be involved with such an emergent technology once, I considered a privilege. But to see it a second time and actually recognize it second time around, I just couldn't believe, I couldn't believe I could be so lucky.
Liz started her voyage into the world of holograms by way of Pepper's Ghost, an illusion technique used in theatres, museums, television, concerts, and of course in magic. Pepper's Ghost is named so because of a scientist named John Henry Pepper, who used the effect to dazzle audiences on stage and in his demonstrations. One of the most obvious illusions is making enormous objects, like an elephant, appear out of thin air and disappear just as quickly into it. It's also the same technique used by Digital Domain for the appearance of Tupac Shakur on stage with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Liz explains this technology in depth, as well as the beginnings of the technology behind her invention, the Holopop system.
So the original holograms I was doing were called Pepper's Ghost. It's quite a complicated setup. It's an angled, tensioned mylar, which reflects a video image that's projected on the floor. So you need quite a lot of space to do it, quite a lot of time. The foil's fragile. You use it once and then you can't take it down and put it back up somewhere else. It's quite a delicate thing. But it gives a good effect, and it kind of got me hooked. So eventually I stopped working with that company and I was looking at what else was out there. And there was another technology out there, which was a gauze projection surface, which actually people were saying, well, it's actually not particularly good, was what I was hearing. But I looked at it and I just went, well, it could be good. All it needs is proper lighting. So obviously as a lighting designer, I felt, well, okay, here's something that I can work with. And I had an idea about how that particular product might be improved. I actually suggested it to the manufacturers and they weren't very receptive. So I thought, you know what, I'll just do it myself. So off I went. Next thing I knew, I'd gone from being a lighting technician to a lighting designer to a creative director to a hologram designer to suddenly I'm in the wild and wacky world of manufacturing theatrical fabrics, which, as you can tell from my potted CV, I was extremely well qualified to do, knew everything about, and off I went.
The fabric Liz created is better known as the patent-pending 3D HoloNet, a highly reflective yet transparent surface which creates bright and convincing holographic effects. The estate of Whitney E. Houston and Base Hologram currently use Liz's creation for an evening with Whitney, the Whitney Houston Hologram Tour. Liz goes into the details of the technically challenging material.
The product's got real silver in it, so even over and above any other kind of wide width fabric, because we're making a product that goes up to about 7 meters wide, the manufacturing and handling of those types of fabrics is difficult and unusual. The silver itself is delicate. You put the wrong chemical on it and it goes black or it goes green or it goes brown or whatever. And that's not what we want. We want the silver to be silver. So it's been quite a journey over the last few years. We've got a product that I'm really very happy with. It overcomes a lot of the issues that I think other products have, which is why I wanted to improve what was out there. Yeah, I mean, we've got some very impressive shows, I think, to our credit. All of the stuff that Base Hologram have done with Whitney Houston, shows like that. I mean, they're a very discerning client. They did shoots out with everything before deciding that they wanted to use us. So, you know, it's been a challenge to get where we are, and you know, I'm pleased with the results.
Another challenge with creating holograms is the laws of physics, specifically secondary image. Liz told me about this phenomenon and the solution she discovered for this, known as Magic Sims.
There are some challenges because it's gauze product. So when you project onto a gauze, where the light hits the actual yarns of the fabric, they're very reflective. So you get an image. But probably 80 to 90% of the product is holes. So where the light hits a hole, it does what light does best, and it travels on in a straight line. So it will make a second image on the next surface that it hits. So if you were to imagine, if you have a normal projector projecting as you would normally project in a straight line onto a screen, you're going to get an image on the screen, but then you're going to get a second image on the back wall. Now, if you're trying to create something like a realistic Whitney Houston hologram, then having one Whitney on the screen and another Whitney on the back wall isn't going to work. So we need to be able to basically hide that secondary image. It's the laws of physics, so you can't stop it from happening. But what you can do is you can position it in certain ways and then you can dissipate it. So I developed a thing that we call Magic Sims. SIMS stands for Secondary Image Management System. And we call it Magic Sims because it's just like magic. I mean, it gets rid of probably 90 to 95% of the secondary image.
The Holopops Ultra, used in the hologram Kanye West gifted his wife, started life as the Holopops Pro and included the Optoma ZH400 UST projector. It was used in shows such as The Wicked Witch for Mirror Mirror on the Wall and in Indian temples. As the system evolved, so had projection. The ZH500 UST was the brighter of the two models and meant Liz could now achieve larger-than-life holograms. She explains the benefits of using an off-axis projector such as the 400 or 500 UST for her work.
I discovered your lovely projector, which was just such a great little projector. It was bright, it had this off-axis projection angle. And the projection on an ultra short throw projector is typically off axis, which means that it's not in a straight line with the projector itself. So the moment that that image is at an angle to where the projector is orientated, you've got two things. First of all, you've got a projector that's actually relatively easy to hang because it's optimized to make a perfectly flat and square and correctly proportioned image with a projection path that's at an angle to the projector. So if we do that, if we've got the projector in the air, it means that we can actually dump that image on the floor. But if you could do that with a normal projector by tipping it. If you tip it, then the image keystones, it's difficult to correct. And particularly if the projector is very close to the net, then the correction on the image is likely to either not even be possible because you're either throwing away pixels or brightness, or you just can't get it into a position where you can get a big enough image and still have a viable output. So the off-axis path is perfect for us.
Liz explained that during lockdown she was working on the evolution of the Holopops Pro and came up with a pole system, meaning that the projector, which was currently placed on the floor, could now be lifted into the air to create a sleeker, more professional-looking solution, now better known as the Holopops Ultra. This is when the call from the Kardashian West camp came through.
I really did want to get the projector up in the air. I came up with a pole system because I had a complete frame system that was still cost-effective, it was lightweight, it was still portable. We could add a soft cover on the whole thing that just wrapped everything up together. And all of a sudden, boom, we had something that not only did the job, but it looked like a proper product. We had no sooner finished getting that sorted when we got the call to send one out to Kim Kardashian's birthday, which was chaos. It was such short notice. I mean, we had to scramble this thing into boxes to get it shipped across to Tahiti. Normally, shipping, it might be expensive, but there's shipping routes there. But a lot of freight actually travels on passenger flights. And obviously there's very few passenger flights and the island's locked down and all the rest of it. So we didn't even have a freight route to get it out there. So it was complicated getting it out to the States and handing it over to our clients who put crew on it in America and had to basically fly it as commercial luggage out to Tahiti. But, we were really happy with the result. Obviously, Kim and her family were delighted. And yeah, it was quite a debut. 35 million views on Twitter and Insta, I think. It's a good launch.
Another aspect of our industry that interests me is patents and whether they benefit or hinder our progress. Liz explained the benefits for an inventor and agreed that in order for our constantly evolving industry to thrive, there needs to be some boundaries in place.
I think they are important because they at least seek to protect your ideas. And I didn't invent a product from absolutely nothing. I didn't start with a chemistry set. I took an amalgamation of ideas and my experience and put them all together and went, let's see if this works. Oh, yes, it does. Okay, great. Well, if I'm going to base a business on that, and if I'm going to put all the time and cost into the R&D, then that deserves to be protected. In my book, there's good patents and bad patents, and there's people that file patents that really have no merit, that are used to bully people. I've seen a bit of that. But what was interesting was going back to the Verilight scenario. Verilight had a whole bunch of patents when they started out. I mean, when we were first fixing those moving lights when I was a technician, we used to have to fix them in secret because there was technology that people weren't allowed to see. So we'd be fixing in cupboards pretty much, which was interesting to say the least. But in order for them to create a mature market, they had to, there were some patent fights, but pretty much that technology had to become ubiquitous. And I think they had to let go of some of their patented ideas in order that they could create an entire industry. So it's interesting because I want to create an industry. I don't want to be an industry of a few small secret or proprietary systems that are full of mystique. There's a lot of ideas out there that holograms are difficult to do. They're not. They're really not. And a lot of that knowledge, which isn't proprietary knowledge, needs to be put out there. The patented knowledge needs to be kept with the companies that have it, but it needs to be made available because otherwise it's just going to die out. It just becomes too difficult for people to do and they're scared of being sued. And that's no way to create an industry.
Finally, I asked Liz where she saw the future of holograms going. And if she could describe the future of Hologrammica in one word, what would it be?
Now that I'm happy that we've got something that looks good as well as doing a good job, something we've been R&Ding in the background for a long time is telepresence, so live video streaming. And we've done it. So we've now got a system that's easy to use. Everybody's now very used to Zoom calls and Skype calls. What you never see on Zoom, you never ever see people mimicking body language. So when two people are really connecting and one of them leans forward, the other one will lean forward. They start to mimic behavior. That never happens on Zoom, but it'll happen with a hologram. That connection's made, they start mimicking each other, the body language is flowing, and then they're really communicating. So it's less tiring, because you're not trying to pull information out through very limited visual and audio information that you're getting from a camera and a microphone. you're automatically picking up on all the little signals that you would normally get. And your brain is able to process that information, and it's going to come to conclusions. It's going to make those 7-second assessments. Are you trustworthy? Do you look shifty? Are you somebody that I like? All of these sort of subtle emotional pathways can suddenly get enabled. I think that's going to be important. Will it replace every single in-person meeting? No, of course not. But could it replace some of them, even a significant proportion of them? I think it could.
If you could sum it up in one word, how would you describe the future for Hologrammica?
I would say transformative, both for the company and for what the technology can do. It's a technology that's been around for quite a long time, one way or another. You go back to the original Pepper's Ghost Mylar patents, and they've expired. So we're well over 20 years down the road with that. The technology and the products are still evolving, and they are barely scratching the surface of the potential uses. Hopefully they'll become more normal. I don't want them to be a sort of flash in the pan, like, oh, we're going to go on tour and this year everyone's got lasers or some new kind of pyro effect. They're not a special effect. I think they're just a communication tool. And that's what I want to see.
If you'd like to find out more about Hologrammica, Liz tells us where to look.
Hologrammica.com. Yeah, there's phone numbers and email contacts on the website. So yeah, pick up the phone, have a chat. We understand it's a new technology, and we don't expect our clients to be experts. You're very welcome to phone up and go, I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, but this is what I'd like to do.
Thank you, Liz, for sharing your AV experience with us. You've been listening to the AV Experience, brought to you by Optoma. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, or would even like to feature, please visit optoma.com for more details. I'm Karina, this is the AV Experience. Catch you in the ether.